Nice. I like that.
And Daniel, can you keep an eye on Tim?
Yes, thank you. There he is.
Hey, Tim.
Hey there. How's everybody doing?
Hey. Good to see you, Tim. I'm Daniel.
Daniel,
Nice to
how are
meet
you doing?
Doing great.
Hey,
thank you.
Daniel, I hear one of our staff members is part of your group.
Sorry, I can't quite hear you.
We were.
I couldn't hear you, Tim.
I was just wondering, do you know who from the Good Chris company is a member with you all?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple people who are probably in the community. I don't know specifically who, but I know Matt.
Yeah, okay. No, I was asking around and nobody seemed to know who.
Oh yeah.
Well, okay.
Cool. All right. These are all the panelists, right? Are we waiting on anyone?
No, we are good.
Cool. Okay, good. We're all situated. We're recording. I see people are starting to trickle in. What's up, everybody? We'll get started in just a few minutes. So are there any emerging brands that you guys have in your pantries or fridges? Any of your favorites?
Well, good crisp, obviously.
Yeah.
Love the chips. I don't have it in my pantry, but I've tried it when I was in Denver last time.
Oh yeah, I want to try the new one. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what the new one's called, but the one, not the Pringles.
Are you talking about the
one?
The crinkle cut?
Yeah,
the lady?
yeah. I want to try that.
Yeah, that's been going well.
Oh, good. Yeah, it looks amazing. Hello, everybody. I see people trickling in here. We'll probably just wait maybe a minute and get started here. And I'm just, Tim, I'm just putting you on mute when you're not talking, Tim, because there's some background noise where you are. And then you can, you should be able to just unmute yourself when you're ready to chat.
And Daniel, you can see the slide, right?
I can see the slide. Yes, we're good. And yeah, I think we can probably get started. It's 1 here, top of the hour. So hello, everybody. I'm Daniel. I am the Startup CPG founder. And I don't always jump in to host webinars, but I really wanted to do this one just because I'm a big fan of Cin7 and the last company that I worked with. We did our research. We asked around, asked consultants that I know what's the best option for emerging brands for inventory management, you know, as we started to grow, and just could not deal with trying to keep track of all the ingredients that we needed based on production and when to order them and how much were we going to be sitting on when we needed to reorder, all that stuff. And over and over again, everybody just said that the best thing out there was the Cin7 product. It used to be called Deer, and now it's called Core. So I relentlessly pursued Cin7 to join us with Startup CPG as a sponsor, and they finally agreed. So I'm really excited that we've now kicked off the partnership with them. What we like to do is educational stuff, because like this content is going to be really useful for everybody. It's just going to be mainly about inventory management in general and to help you guys kind of get up to speed on it. they do have a super cool offer being a startup CPG partner where you can get a free month trial and then 50% off the first 3 months after that. So if you're thinking about it, I definitely encourage you to take advantage of it. And with that, I think I'll introduce our speakers and we can kick off here. So can I pass to you guys to first introduce yourselves, and then we'll just jump right into the slides. And I'll also note that we do have a Q&A open. So you can put your questions in there. If it's a broadly applicable question, often I'll jump in so that we can ask it. If it's a very specific one, we may save it for the end or try to do it written. But let's kick it off here. Ajoy, should I pass to you first for introductions?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Daniel. With that introduction, you probably should be doing this webinar instead of me. But love that story about keeping track of stuff and whatnot, which hopefully we'll spend some time talking about today. I'm thrilled to be here and appreciate the opportunity, Daniel and Startup CPG community, for having us in this webinar, but also looking forward to a more productive partnership between Cin7 and Startup CPG. My name is Ajoy Krishnamurthy. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Cin7. I look after the product portfolio, but also largely our investment priorities, where we take the product from a broader vision standpoint, keeping track of what's happening in the industry. And we do all of that not in a vacuum, but working very closely with our customers. Talking about our customers, one such customer is actually Tim, who is joining us on the call here. Before I hand it off over to him, he's also part of our product advisory councils. This is something that we are super passionate about. We have a community of customers that are part of a council that helps us define what the product roadmap needs to be. We're super transparent. We share our backlog. We meet on a monthly basis, but also have some ad hoc conversations along the way. They're also part of our Slack channel community. So want to say big thanks to Tim for spending his time, during that engagement, but also for jumping in today. Tim, I know you are a startup CPG member. Cin7 Customer also have a CPG brand. I think I can't find a better guest than Tim to join and share his experience. So Tim, with that, I'll turn it over to you for your introduction.
Yeah, hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate Ajoy and Stephen pulling me in. I started working with the firm when it was called Deere, as you had heard earlier. That was back in 2019. I was basically thrown into the system and was told I'd become the expert for the company. That was back when the CPG or the CBD companies were all in heavy growth. And I went in with them and learned quite a bit about the system. When I decided to move on, I was very shocked when I saw that the Good Crisp company had indicated, well, they were using Deere. I thought, oh, well, this will be good. So yeah, it's been very exciting with them. I'm in the finance role, the VP of Finance. Started out actually in manufacturing in the automobile and motorcycle business years ago before moving on into sporting goods and CPG, which I've been doing for the past 9 years now with a variety of different brands.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool. Stephen, do you want to say a quick hello also?
Yeah. So Stephen Sugart here. I'm Director of Digital Marketing at Cin7. I'm here to help kind of answer questions as Ajoy talks and hopefully keep him in line if he gets out of line too. So won't be doing too much talking, but happy to be a part of this partnership. Thanks, guys.
Cool. All right, let's rip into it. Ajoy,
Awesome.
all you.
I'll say challenge accepted, Stephen. Awesome. All right, well, we'll jump right in. And again, as Daniel said, please pipe in with some questions along the way, and hopefully we'll have some time towards the end as well. What we thought we'll set up this conversation because, the spirit of this conversation is about sharing a bit of knowledge around how we think about inventory and the importance of inventory management in the context of a lot of your emerging growing businesses, right? And, when I talk about inventory management, before we dive into the what, the why, and the how, one of the key things to keep in mind for all of us, which I know you're all in the forefront, seeing this day in and day out, and not just as a CPG business owner or on part of the emerging organization, but also as a consumer. One of the things that we have seen is a big shift in how easy it is to buy stuff, right? we all as consumers have gone through this, and particularly the pandemic also put a big step function change in how we consume products and how we buy products, how we get that delivered. And we have seen significant changes that have happened over the course of last decade, particularly last 3 to 5 years, in terms of online ordering, in terms of things like BOPUS, which was an acronym that did not exist probably 3 years ago. Now it's super prevalent in the retail space, which is buy online, pick up in store. We've all, I'm sure, have gone through and did some curbside pickup and whatnot. And then the recent trend, which I think we have seen some penetration with social channels like Facebook and Instagram driving sales. And one of the newer ones in the block from a shopping experience standpoint is TikTok, where people are able to come in and look at the products in a video, and the ability to go from that to just pick a particular shoe or a jacket that a artist is wearing in a TikTok video to be able to add it to a shopping cart and buy. Tremendous traction there. In fact, I was looking at a survey recently of target customers in that age group. 50% are saying that they are going to be shopping at TikTok, and it was 62% for Facebook. So for a brand that introduced shopping less than 3-4 months ago, super impressive to see that type of penetration happening. And we're going to continue to see changes like this, right? And that's all exciting for us. People that we're all in the CPG product business. We have a platform in the product seller space. Super exciting to see that. But then if you flip the coin, if somebody is buying, somebody got to be selling something, right? What is happening from a selling standpoint is selling has become as easy as buying. There are things that we need to do from how we think about stocking our inventory, to tracking our inventory, to fulfilling the orders that comes in, the channels that we work with. Fundamentally, a lot of that requires a level of thinking and planning. And if done right, those will become a big driver of growth for organizations like yourselves. So let's start with the core thing here, which is the meat of this topic, right, or the session today, which is inventory management, right? For all of you, I'm sure many of you are doing this and tracking this and spending time in various, a spectrum from a sophistication standpoint. So I wanted to just do a quick level set and talk through, when we say inventory manage, what do we mean by that, right? So we'll just do some quick 101 here, so we get the key concepts across and get all of us on the same playing field. When we talk about inventory, we're talking about all of these different kinds, right? Daniel mentioned the ability to know if I'm getting all the raw materials or the ingredients that I need to produce something. What is it stuck? What does the production schedule look like? Would I get it enough in time to be able to offer the finished goods? So it starts with that, from raw materials, if you happen to be a manufacturing, or if you're even doing an assembly, disassembly, right? You buy bulk products of A and bulk products of B and create a bundle of A and B together and sell it. Do you have enough of product A and B to create the bundle C, right? How do you keep track of all of that? Finished goods is obviously what you get done. Tracking work in progress, right? How much of the inventory is actually being produced and what does the timeline look like? And then also having visibility into what's in transit. There is this notion of inventory at rest and inventory in motion. I'm sure some of you heard of that. Inventory in motion is obviously all the inventory that's stuck, or in transit or making their way to your warehouses or your distribution centers. Typically, it's on a truck, it's on a ship and whatnot. And that's usually pretty hard to track because there's so many moving parts, and engagement with the 3PLs, if you're using that, supply chain organizations are going to be super important. But then inventory at rest is not a luxury. That's something all of, if any product seller need to have a pretty good handle on. What is that? Inventory at rest is basically the inventory that's in your warehouse, that's in the distribution center, that's in your retail stores, right? And it's important that you know what's the visibility into this inventory, so you can manage your forecasting, you can manage your sales campaigns, you can manage how much you can fulfill from a retailer demand standpoint, particularly with products that have seasonality and have probably high volume transaction coming in because of the holiday season and so on. understanding what do you have and what you might have based on the inventory in transit is going to be super important so you can plan your organization growth appropriately. The who, when it comes to inventory, it's obviously starts with you as a product seller, right? So in this case, Tim's organization, which is the Good Crisp company, they are the number one stakeholder in this mix. Second is your suppliers, right? In common sense, right? Obviously, you need to have a good engagement and integration from a system standpoint. So you have the ability to understand what's coming from your suppliers, who are dependent, and understanding also supplier performance over the years. Your retailers, companies that, retail locations, whether it's big or small, that might be carrying your products, right? And what type of relationship you have, what type of engagement that you have with them. Shipping companies, that's actually broadly logistics, right? As a whole, how do you engage with them? And then last but not least, your customers. All of these are actors that you need to factor in when you think about having a good 360 view on how your inventory is performing. And then when you think about the when, it's this is kind of a bit of a science and an art, right? When it comes to planning the amount of inventory you need to have, and then forecasting based on the demand, both on the supply side and the sales side. You're obviously going to factor in some of the market forces, whether it's a perceived social campaign or a social campaign that you're running and the expected growth out of that, or a spike, if you will, or a competitive threat or a pressure, or any new products that you might be launching. As you were coming on the call, Daniel was just talking about a new product that Tim's company launched and how that's doing well. You got to think about the behavior of new product very differently than an existing product. Because a lot of times the cost of bringing a new product early on is super high, and you have to learn and you have to prepare and have some bandwidth set aside for that, while you continue to grow your existing SKUs as well. And then the last piece is super important because you don't want all of your capital be stuck on ingredients or raw materials or work in process goods. So you got to think about how do you balance how much you order, whether you are a manufacturer or a pure distributor, either way, how much you need to have. Going back to the comment I made about inventory on hand, you got to be able to have a good handle on that. Otherwise, you're going to end up spending a lot of money stuck in it, restricting your growth overall. And I'll share a couple of examples of how companies tend to struggle with it without having good visibility into the status of their inventory. Where we touched on this briefly, right? This is where the inventory in motion, inventory at rest comes into play. Having a good visibility into how much you have in your warehouse or garage. It's okay when you're growing up and early on to keep all of this in mind, and exactly it's in the back shelf on the third bin. But at some point in time, you're going to grow out of it. When you grow out of it, you want to have a system that's going to be super helpful for us to know this data, and so you can plan your organizational forecast and growth appropriately. The second location is suppliers, right? Again, this is not just about understanding where the inventory that you are expecting to receive, ingredients, raw materials, or finished goods that you're going to take in and distribute. It's also the quality of the supplier and the performance of their supplier over the course, whatever the relationship that you've had with them. How do you use that to factor in as you're thinking about replenishment going forward? 3PLs, third-party logistics. Many of our customers, and I'm sure many of you are using some of the 3PL facility, or some of you might have your own warehouses. It's important to have that relationship with the 3PL, understand where things are. I have seen organizations single-handedly struggle to make because of their broken relationship with the 3PL. So really important not just to pick the right 3PL, but also have an ongoing discussion and engagement with them. So you're super clear with your expectations and prioritization, and understand that the capacity on the 3PL side is also there to match your demand. The last thing, obviously, is the retail stores, especially if you're using it as a retail business. And then, obviously, anything that's online, physical, whatever, you got to be able to have a good handle on how that's playing out from a demand perspective. So all of this, like, the what, the who, the why, the when, at the end of the day, like, why does it all matter, right? As a growing, emerging business, at the end of the day, we want to be able to run not just an efficient organization, but an organization that can continue to grow. And later today, Tim will talk about some of this journey that they've gone through, having gone through a significant growth. It starts with being super smart about how we are managing costs, right? We talk about this as controlling cost, but it's all about like managing the cost that's going in. Like I said earlier, when you are introducing new SKUs, your cost equation is going to look very different than you continuing to operate on an existing SKU. And especially organizations that have like a large number of SKUs. I don't know enough about your businesses to comment, but I've seen customers that have 80, 100 SKUs, and we've dealt with a customer not too long ago that have 80,000 SKUs, believe it or not, right? And that is super important. And your cost equation is going to be super different based on that. So some thinking around it rather than being very reactive, some proactive planning around how I think about my SKU architecture and structure is going to be super important from a longer term efficiency and growth. Improving customer satisfaction. This is true for any business, right? It's not just for product sellers. Any business, at the end of the day, you got to keep an eye on the customers and the customer engagement. And one of the common things you can track about is like repeat business and the total customer value. If a customer is buying product A from you, what would it take for them to continue to buy product A? The whole subscription aspect in CPG has been on fire over the last couple of years. If some of you haven't explored that, something I would strongly recommend you look into, especially for some products. It's actually a really, really good model to get higher customer retention, but also repeat purchase. And then expanding your market, right? Whether it's new SKUs like we talked about, or new geographies, or new channel. Getting into new channel is not easy, even though it might be tempting to say, if I just opened up blah, connect with Amazon or connect with Walmart, that I could double my revenue. But honestly, what you put in is what you get out, right? So you got to be super thoughtful of why you are looking to expand into a particular market or a particular channel. And then the last piece, why this all matters, is at the end of the day, how you're performing against the market, right? Very rarely we tend to operate in a business where there's no competition. If you are, power to you. And probably if you are right now, it's a very temporary state. We have seen this time and time again in any product category. And you got to be moving the ball, right? It's almost like, how do I invest in my product quality, customer engagement, profitability? So you're always like, a step or two ahead of where the market is. So they can't catch you, if you will. Okay. So that's just the quick landscape when you think about inventory as a whole. Daniel?
Joy, yeah, maybe I would love to try to summarize the slide, because there's a lot of good info here, but just to catch people up. So correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding then, so inventory management overall is all about like, okay, there's a lot of stuff you have to think about for your product, like the raw materials that go into it, the amount of finished product that you have, and like, where is that finished product also? Do you just have one warehouse, or do you have multiple warehouses? Do you have 3PLs that the product's sitting in? Do you have, distributors where the product is? And just kind of taking into account all of these, sorry, Tim, I'm just going to mute your audio there. Just trying to understand all of these different arenas, so that when somebody says like, hey, we've got this new customer, can we fulfill it? You actually know the answer to that, because you understand like, okay, here's how much inventory I have at these different locations. What's that going to mean? If I need to do another run quickly, do I even have all the ingredients that I need for that? So are those some of the, is that a good summary, or did I miss anything really critical?
I think you summarized. I mean, you definitely speak like someone that you've been in this business before. So that's fantastic. Now, at the end of the day, right? I mean, the simplest way to talk about inventory is like, you have a view on what comes in the door, and you have a view on what goes out the door, and what happens in between those two endpoints, right? Point A and point B. And the more you have control and visibility into that journey, the more efficient you're going to be, more opportunities you are going to expand and grow, right? That's what's in a nutshell. But it's important for you to think about in this context. The reason even Stephen, put together the slide, the reason it's important is sometimes people get blindsided by one or the other, right? You get blindsided by your supplier, you get blindsided by your 3PL. That's where usually you end up in a challenging environment. That's why it's important you keep a value. It's almost like a control dashboard, right? You want to know everything that's going on, not just have a very selective channel view on one particular party. And you don't want to do this all alone, right? I think one of the main things for us, especially in this day and age with a lot of innovation and capabilities out there, many of this, again, some of the concepts we were talking about are super simple, like tracking inventory. It's like, I had 5 come in, I sold 3, I've got 2 left. Come on, how hard can it be, right? Simple math. But some of them can get pretty tricky, especially when you have dependencies with your suppliers coming in and you're actually doing manufacturing. You have to commit a delivery date, and it's, let's say it's for a particular season that's coming up, and you need to get this out on a set time. How do you start planning? How do you start throwing more resources at certain things, right? And are you making the right call? One of the things that we talk to our customers all the time is like, when you do inventory replenishment, do you know which one to replenish, right? Are you picking the right SKU from a profitability standpoint? So there are obviously things that are super sophisticated and complicated. That's where tools are a friend of yours, right? Think about the right set of tools, not suggesting all of you drop whatever you have and go get X, Y, or Z, but take advantage of what's out there from a capability standpoint. What we have seen customers use, when I ask, we manage our inventory, great, but then they say, oh, we use spreadsheets. Spreadsheets is not bad, right? I mean, spreadsheets and Google Sheets, probably great tools for many, many, many things. But for inventory management at a certain level, yes, you're emerging, you have one product, one SKU, one channel. Sure. Can you track them in your sheets? Absolutely. But once you get to a point where you have multiple of those parties involved, you have a 3PL, you have a couple of different suppliers, and specifically you have more than one channel. What do I mean by that? You have a Shopify store that you have set up, or a WooCommerce store or whatnot. Now you're looking at expanding into Amazon. The moment you add the second channel, or vice versa, you started off on Amazon and you're like, nah, I want to actually set up my own brand, own store. The moment you turn that on, time to get off of spreadsheet. Okay, there is no better way to say it. You have to have a better control, because tracking orders coming in across multiple channels, I got 1,000 orders from Amazon, 1,000 orders from Shopify, and trying to reconcile all of that using an Excel sheet is not a good idea. We would not recommend that. The reason being, right, this is obviously a good marketing slide, but we have seen this time and time again with customers, right? If you do not adopt some of the new inventory management practices, you're guaranteeing failure, right? I mean, it's as simple as that. There's no sugarcoating that statement. How you get to success, obviously there is a path to it. Where you invest and where you drive efficiency, it obviously depends on your organization's maturity, process pain points, people involved, types of products you sell, etc. The pattern that we have seen, this is not just this is a summary of some of the experience that we have heard from a lot of our customers. Key thing is obviously for us, and we have data on companies that actually have gone flat from a growth perspective and eventually don't exist. So growth is important, for you to continue to thrive and survive. And if you want to fuel growth, you got to be able to move and manage the inventory, right? The more turnover that happens, the better you are, the more profitable you get, etc. If you want to have that type of movement and motion from an inventory standpoint, you have to be prepared to handle complexity, which is what I was talking about. Some of them is simple math, not a lot of them, right? We need to be able to handle that complexity and don't try to do it alone. What we have seen, this is just one illustration of a data point, right? This is from one of the recent study, I think it was done by Intuit with the small businesses. One of the things it talks about is the amount of inventory waste that happens over the year. This is a global number, I believe. $160 billion worth of inventory, right? And if they peel the onion, look at what's going on, what is inventory waste? It could be in many different forms. It's like SKUs you carry that's past the expiration date, SKUs that you carry that doesn't have any more relevance in the market, out of fashion, whatever the case may be. There are many different ways that you can run into inventory waste. It's not just finished products; it's also ingredients, the bundle products that I talked about. So you need to be super thoughtful on this. And when they peel the onion and look at the statistics, 2/3 of customers that they talk to are using spreadsheets. Again, I don't have to sell that point any harder. It is impossible. We have seen time and time again, And I'm sure Daniel can quote some personal examples of what he has seen in the industry. I'm sure Tim can talk through some of that as well. So the second thing that
it's too painful to remember some of the waste that we've had. So, but yes, it's there.
Yeah, no, I don't want to trigger any scary memories for you, Daniel. But again, one example is like we had an outdoor company, right? That I had a chance to talk to. They were a family-owned business. They've been around for business for like decades. And then when COVID hit, obviously they have to scramble and shut everything down and all that. But then what happened was, one of the things that happened with the COVID was people are actually getting outdoors more. They're all out there. I mean, in fact, our family, we picked up paddleboarding during COVID. And that's what happened. And a lot of people were like, yeah, we need paddle boards and this board and that. And these guys were literally put on notice to move from the spreadsheets and whatnot into a inventory management system. So sometimes you get those wake-up calls and you have to go run through them in a very fast pace, try to get the system up and running so you can capitalize on the demand. In some cases, you won't even have that opportunity. By the time you realize it, it might be too late. So this is one of those things where prevention is better than cure, right? Yeah. So you got to plan ahead, especially for growing organizations. Think about this as an investment you're putting into secure future growth. The second challenge.
I was just going to add, like, some of the pain points that we really saw. You mentioned about having a good relationship with your 3PL or your warehouse was, I mean, just even getting an accurate count of inventory from the warehouse, and then also really getting an accurate count of how much of the ingredients were being used by the co-man also. So I know this stuff can really help with that, but without that, I mean, yeah, we ended up with just lots of problems and not being able to fulfill orders that we thought we could. So just echoing your point.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Now, the second challenge that we see, one is obviously not having a spreadsheet obviously will help. The second thing is operating in silos. What do I mean by that, right? This is where, again, as you are growing, you're going to have certain disciplines within the organization. The back office from an accounting standpoint, you got to have a good view on how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, what does the profitability look like? You have your own shipping, right? At the end of the day, whatever product we have, our success is not keeping the product in the warehouse. Our success is getting the product out of the warehouse in the hands of the customers as fast as you can. So there's obviously shipping plays a big role. And then all of your channels, right? Like I talked about Shopify and Amazon, it's WooCommerce, it's whatever platform that you use, it's eBay, it's Walmart, other specialized marketplaces that are picking up momentum. Some of them are very popular in certain geographies that you need to keep an eye on, right? So it's super important that you don't try to come up with a system or an implementation where you are only focused on tracking inventory, right? One of the examples that I use is like customers trying to tackle inventory in silos might as well not do it, because at the end of the day, this is about an integrated operation, and that requires visibility across all of those players, from the point of receiving goods to point of selling and everything that goes in between, and then having connections into your accounting system, whether it's QuickBooks Online or Xero or something else that you're using, making sure those integrations are in place so you can track this all the way. Same thing with our EDI 3PL. Like if you have a trading partner, large retailers, Daniel talked about the importance of relationship with 3PL. Getting to know them, having that human connection, it's super important. But even more important is making sure that your EDI 3PL connections are set right and validated, so you got the right set of orders and you can fulfill with confidence. Okay, so I'll wrap up this by talking to you about 5 things you need to know. We're trying to come up with some fun way of doing this. I was trying to be a David Letterman and start throwing cards and stuff. Maybe next time we'll do that. But we'll just give you a sense, because we've been talking about inventory. But it's not just about inventory, guys. Like when we think about inventory management, it's almost like, it's the core, obviously, of your business. So that's why the focus is on it. But it's beyond that. I talked about the EDI connection, EDI 3PL connection to your retailers and your 3PLs. Super important for you to focus on, especially those of you that actually rely on this. Super important you get this right. Second is the e-commerce marketplaces. I cannot understate the importance of how well connected it needs to be. So you have a good reflection of what's the stock on hand. Like stock levels getting misreported is probably the biggest reason you have customer dissatisfaction and loss of profit, right? Either you underrepresent your stock level or you overrepresent your stock level. Either is a bad thing. If you oversold, your customers are unhappy. If you're undersold, you must be unhappy, right? So just keep an eye on how much integration, how much value these integrations can drive, especially when you look to expand to multiple marketplaces. Third is automation. One of the things that we have seen, Daniel talked about some, scary memories from the past of doing a lot of things manually. One of the things you also want to look into is like how much of the process you can automate, whether it's sales order approval, whether it's fulfillment, whether it's replenishment. Yes, I remember talking to a customer not too long ago where she, doesn't matter which part of the world she is in, whether she's working or on vacation, her team members always call her to place a replenishment order. Okay. It works fine when you're a small business, when you're running, sub-$1 million, $2 million. But once you scale, once you start operating in these multiple channels, that could be a difference between a 20% growth and a 0% growth, right? So think about that. Like, how can you enable your employees to make those decisions with confidence? That's the super important part. It's not just automating everything and say, approve all the sales orders, but what are the thresholds you can set aside? What are the conditions you can have from an inventory replenishment order where the team member doesn't have to rely on one person in the organization to have that information in their head that they have to review and approve everything. And then there's lots of mundane tasks that we can eliminate from an inventory management, sales order fulfillment, et cetera, that could be automated to save a lot of time for you and your team members. The fourth is data and insights. I'm sure I'm not the only one. There's so much excitement and hype around machine learning and AI. If you haven't heard that, I'll be stunned. But for us, if you take the hype away of all of the noise, there is some real applicability how we think about taking some of the data that we have and understand about the customer journey and behavior. How do we turn them into insights? We are doing something in our platform. Many companies out there are doing something in their platform. This is about, going back to my comment about automation, how do we help users make decisions confidently? That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. I remember asking this question to a customer about a year ago, right? Or 9 months ago. Like, how do you decide which supplier to use, right? Especially when you're on a crunch. And you go, we've always used this one. And I said, what about the other two? I don't know, man. This one tend to be always right. And we looked at the data. Actually, it was not the case, right? So how do you make sure we provide some, intelligence on what the supplier performance looks like in terms of delivering on time, delivering on budget, delivering quality products to you, and so on. Same thing around forecasting. We talked about forecasting and planning in the inventory slide. How can we get smarter about when do you need to start applying your forecast model, especially to the comment that Daniel made earlier, which is around if you're dependent on a manufacturing process to get stuff produced so you can actually stock up your shelves or your retailer shelves, what point in time? There is a long lead cycle. I remember reading about the logistics. We've all seen the supply chain challenge kind of go through a pretty crazy ride over the last few years. The average time from a port in China to US is now, I think it's about 40 days. It used to be 85, 90 days, right? During the peak of post-pandemic. How do you anticipate for a lot of that? If you're waiting on a 50-day availability for your holiday campaign, and then you place the order, you feel really good about the forecast, but then the ship won't make it on the shore until 90 days. You missed the boat, pun intended there. So I think that's the super important thing. When do you, how do you use data to assist you in your job and turn them into actionable insights? The last piece is how do you bring a lot of these capabilities together with a tighter integration? I cannot overstate the importance of this. This goes back to my silo comment I made earlier. Having knowledge about the inventory is important, but also having the knowledge about all of the different parties that plays around. That's why I spent some time thinking about who are the parties that you need to keep in mind, from TPL to suppliers to customers to retailers to EDI, trading merchants. All of them need to be super integrated. One such integration that is, we have seen our customers benefit a lot from, that's super critical, is our integration into accounting, right? And any inventory management system should have a pretty solid, seamless integration with data flowing back and forth between QuickBooks or Xero. At the end of the day, if you're not on top of the numbers, you're not on top of your business. It's as simple as that. So you got to be able to know how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, what's the delay, what's your accounts receivable look like, what's your DSO. All of that needs to be available so you can run your business better. A person that can actually talk about this in a very, very knowledgeable fashion is our guest today, Tim. Tim actually runs finance in the Good Crisp company. So I want to bring him in, but before
Joy, I just had can you go back to the last slide just for a second? I just want to get some questions on this one. So a couple questions about, I think, integrations. Like, so would, Cin7 typically would integrate with Shopify, like WooCommerce, all of that stuff?
Yeah, so from an integration standpoint, we have over 900 integrations from a Cin7 perspective. We connect with all of the marketplace sites, like all of the e-commerce platforms, so to speak, right? Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, I'm sure I'm forgetting a ton of them, Wayfair, eBay, I mean, you name it. We've got a bunch of those marketplaces and commerce platforms that we connect with. That's one aspect, right? The second aspect is shipping. All of the shipping providers, right? Whether it's you're using ShipStation or ShipRush, you need to have that integration as well. The third is CRM tools. Like, you might be using different marketing tools, different CRM tools. You need that integration as well. Accounting that I talked about, which is QuickBooks or Xero, right? You need that connections as well. And then the last piece on that puzzle is all the EDI 3PL connections.
Okay, got it. And then just kind of a journey question here. Let's say, you start your own brand, or just you're starting from zero here. You get to the point where you have a formula, let's say you're making a drink or something that has 10 ingredients in it. Let's say if you don't have this kind of a system, what's probably going to happen to you for inventory management so you're at the point where you've locked your formula and you have a co-min. You need to figure out, you need to start ordering it. You need to, get a forecast to your co-min, start producing that, and then start understanding what your, typical customer forecast is going to look like. What do you think people are going to be doing if they don't have a full-fledged system or whatever in the meantime? And what are some tips for people as they're doing it to at least make the most of it before they move over to an inventory management software?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And, I'm going to give you this very obvious answer, which is it depends, right? But in reality, what happens is people actually overcompensate for lack of tooling, right? That's what happens. That's why businesses run. We've seen companies actually come to us with a lot of pain when they don't have tool sets in place, but they have a lot of manual processes, people working like superheroes, try to go from where they are to what they need to get done. But at the end of the day, what happens is that your potential is compromised, right? If you do not have the tool, and I'm not saying it's Cin7, go look at whatever platform that you think it's good for your organization. But you need to invest in a tool that allows you to get to your maximum potential. If you don't do that, then whatever growth you're seeing, if you're growing at 10%, you might be growing at 40%. If you had all of those processes automated and connected, that's the biggest thing. It's the opportunity cost, number one. Number two is the data point that I shared around the inventory waste. You don't realize. When you realize it, it's literally too late for you for many organizations. Your cost, your cash flow tight, and you become dependent on other lenders and so on, and you literally go out of business. We have seen customer stories after customer stories of companies that struggle to make that transition. That's why I made the comment what I made, which is prevention is better than cure. Of course, companies react and catch up on this at the last minute, but you want to plan ahead. And again, I'm sure Tim can talk to it because Good Crisp company actually went through a pretty significant growth, probably 10x in the last few years. And if I do my math right, they're expecting about 40-50% growth this year as well. Some of this came up. I mean, Tim obviously joined by the time they've already chosen Cin7 Core. And that takes time, right? A tool is not a magic solution. It's not a silver bullet, guys. Right? When you pick a tool, you also have to adapt your process. Sometimes you have to relearn some of the processes because you might be doing it a certain way that may or may not work well. So some of them you have to leave behind. Some of them you have to learn based on the platform of choice. And that takes time. It's not as much as that I want to say, and I'm sure my sales and marketing would love for me to say this, saying it's all seamless, guys, flip a switch and everything is business as usual. It's not. It takes a level of planning and thoughtful engagement. And that's why you got to do that when you can afford to, not when you're killing yourself.
Okay, but tell me if this journey is right. For somebody who doesn't have this software, they're starting with, let's say, a formula that has their ingredient breakdown, weight by gram or whatever for each ingredient. And then they're probably thinking like, okay, here's the sample quantity we're going to order from the manufacturer. Okay, multiplied by my ingredient breakdown. Here's the total amount they need.
Oh, did we lose Daniel?
Thinking like, oh, okay, this amount's going to go to this warehouse, back up against their original formula to project out the ingredients, and then understand, where they're going to end up shipping it, right, as well. And like, what are there any other, and like, obviously looking at their e-commerce orders and trying to true all of that up inside of the spreadsheet. Am I like hitting on a lot of the complexity that someone would have to build into like a homegrown spreadsheet?
Yeah, in a co-man type situation, those are the complexities. In other cases, it's just you're sourcing products and you're a distributor. It's a little different, right? You're not worried about the formula and the complexity of the ingredients and so on. You just want to get the product in your warehouse in the right time. So you can either create your own bundle or you're just reselling. Either way, right? There, it's a little less complicated on the inbound, but it's equally complicated on the outbound, right? Especially when you think about the forecasting, like how much stock level I need to set aside for Shopify, how much I need to set aside for Amazon, whatever other channels, like you might have a retail partnerships. Those are the stuff that actually really breaks you because you cannot literally manage them in a manual way. People do it. Like I said, people have used manual processes where you overcompensate by throwing people at the problem, but you're losing a lot of efficiency by doing that. In some cases, like I said, in many cases, it comes down to what's the potential for the business to grow and how much this is becoming an inhibitor.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's bring on Tim.
All right, Tim. Hopefully, I saw you nodding a few times along the way, so hopefully this is all making sense.
Yeah, some things that brought back interesting memories and all. And I think it even goes beyond the fact, Dan, you were mentioning, okay, so, I have my recipe, etc. And so many companies start up, it's in their kitchen, and they have this idea and they start putting things together and they say, well, I know I need, this many grams or this many ounces of this, and this. And they're very careful about doing that. And then they suddenly realize when someone else is doing that, you start having waste. And that waste can grow so quickly. And you start wondering, well, I bought enough of everything for 20,000, barrels of this or that. And how come I only got 10,000 barrels out of it? And so that's when, again, where spreadsheets will break down because, they just don't scale with production, waste, et cetera. Anyway, interesting conversation. Ajoy he just hit on so many things that I have been a part of at a variety of different companies, even when it was not CPG. We had those troubles in the automobile business, in the motorcycle business, in the sporting goods business. So it's not just limited to here. But a little bit about Good Chris. So our company was started by our founder in 2013 in Australia. And he quickly realized that if he really wants to be making a name for the company, that he was going to need to move things. And initially moved it into California and then on into Boulder, Colorado in 2016 with 3 people. In 2021, we added cheese balls to our product line. We were just a canister chip company prior to that. And we moved up to 5 people. And this year, we've added bagged chips, or what we call the crinkle cut. And we are now up to 20 people. Our growth has been tremendous. We've had huge success with a lot of different retailers and distribution channels. It's been a great ride, and we don't see that is slowing down. And inventory management plays just such a huge role in our success. One of the things that we have to keep very focused on is, I keep banging into my fist, landed cost, because there's more to it than just the ingredients. I've got freight that comes in, I've got customs that come in, I've got the various warehouse handling and devanning, et cetera, and all looking at all those costs that go into putting a product on the warehouse shelf ready to sell. And that is very important piece so I can now understand what is my true margin. Once I get to the point where I need to pick, pack, ship, well, those are part of the sales general administrative costs that are not part of COGS. And you know, I've been with a variety of companies where we were purchasing other brands and looking at their business and the number of folks that would come in and say that how their margins were, et cetera. And then you realize over time, they're not including their own labor time. They're not including any freight in. They're not including any warehousing costs, et cetera, et cetera. And suddenly realizing, well, actually, your product is a very, very low margin that, something that just needs to be worked on, not, unresolvable. So, extremely important. And then, inventory valuation. How much money have I got tied up of my assets in inventory? Super important, with regards to, you're an emerging company. Odds are you may be wanting to look at funding. Folks will look very, very closely at your inventory for any asset-backed lending, or your investors want to know how are you turning your inventory. We turn inventory at a variety of companies I've been with anywhere from 4 times a year to 12 times a year. And remembering that every time I'm selling inventory, I've got more cash to go begin buying more inventory. So I only have to lay out that cash, a couple of times a year, not every time I go out to buy it, because I'm hopefully I've got a margin there to apply toward my purchases. And month-end reconciliations with our 3PLs, super critical, something that is very difficult to do without some sort of assistance through a program, DEER or some of the others, Cin7. So, so what does it mean? It gives us the data for us to be able to make real decisions, tough decisions about, well, do we need to start considering a second or third supplier? Do we need to look at other lines of transportation, getting product out the door or in the door, so that we can get our costs to where they need to be, or our profits where they need to be? Looking, as I'd mentioned before, evaluating, well, who's going to give us some of the best lending with regards to, they all will take inventory into consideration as to what you're worth for giving your money, you a loan or so. And so those are just, super important pieces that inventory just plays. It is, as I always said, it's kind of the central piece of so much that happens at the company. And you've got to get a good control over that. And it's just super critical, especially, when you start experiencing hyper growth. Too challenging to try and do that, by hand, obviously. I remember in the early days, my early days at, I was overseas in the automobile business. I used to walk around with a spiral bound book, and that's how I knew where everything was. Because it was that, or carrying around a 4-inch stack of folded computer printout paper, because we didn't have these kinds of tools. So, and getting that data about our inventory, and being able to look at days sales outstanding and days inventory outstanding, my cash conversion cycle, et cetera, so I can see, well, how are we doing? Where do I start to see that we can make improvements in our cash flow, in our management and control of inventory? And one of the things very, very important, with a tool like Cin7 is building the recipes, so to speak. So okay, here's my forecast of how much I should be using of different ingredients, and I can, with that all flowing right into the financials, I can see at the end of the month when I make my inventory count, why are we using more salt than I expected? We should have had 10,000 pounds. Why do we only have 5,000 pounds? Did we waste it? Did somebody drop it? Did we lose it? All very important pieces of that I couldn't stress more, that you all need to just keep an eye on.
Yeah. Hey, super helpful information there, Tim. Hey, one thing you can comment on, especially given a lot of the attendees here are probably going through some of that growth spurt, like as you guys have experienced, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, and continue to have a strong trajectory. What are some of your lessons learned? I know you came in when the core was already in place, but how do you think about a tooling? I mean, I said it from a product perspective, more of a bit of a view from a, how we think about product investment based on customer pains and so on. Share your perspective. Like what, I know you talked about some of the ability to track cost and whatnot. Just anything else you would highlight in terms of the value that they derive from a platform and specifically around the integration I talked about, specifically the accounting and inventory, right? I don't think it can be overstated, like I said earlier. Anything you want to comment on that, like how it makes, I mean, you made a comment about the landed cost and the importance of having that number, right, from overall profitability. Anything you want to add to that, Tim?
Yeah, quite honestly, that landed cost piece is such a huge focus point for us and for every company I've been in, because everybody wants to know what's our real margin. Are we really getting this information accurately? I mean, there are a lot of pieces of this that are super important, but landed cost couldn't be any more important, for us. And with all the companies that I've worked with that use an inventory valuation system. Certainly, it's about product and inventory, raw materials usage that is extremely important. Landed cost is super critical. And I know that well, one of the things that I'll mention that Joy had said regarding you've got to take the time to learn whatever system you choose. There's some great documentation in the Deere Cin7 system that talks directly about landed costs. And yeah, I had to spend lots and lots of time learning the system. You can't expect to just jump in and say, oh, it's just going to be super easy. It takes a concerted effort and an interest in it. So
Joey, before you jump in that demo, you want to cover the last slide real quick in case people want to, get a trial or?
No, again, I'm not going to spend more than 30 seconds here because I do have one more question I want to ask Tim, and then I'll do the last slide. Guys, given we're talking about so much on the product, so this is essentially the landing dashboard from a Cin7 core standpoint. And you have dashboard, you can personalize the dashboard. But what I want to just show you is like the capabilities we've been talking about all along, across from a core perspective. All of the purchasing you can track, you can set up simple purchases, you can look for all the different purchase and suppliers in here. And then you track all of your sales. Similar approach, like the behavior is super consistent across the product. Setting up a simple sale, advanced sale, RMA, which is a pretty sophisticated capability. A lot of our customers appreciate. So you can have the full 360 view from a returns management perspective. We have a full production module. So for those of you that actually do assembly, disassembly, you can do that. But you can also do full discrete or process manufacturing. We have a lot of beverage companies that do continuous production, and we have capabilities to do that, but also track, the serial lot numbers, so we can be super good with the batch numbers and so on, and have that life cycle completely tracked. Some of the things that I highlighted here, again, I'm not going to go through and click on. You'll see some of the connections into the financials, basic CRM, so you can track your contacts. Bunch of reports out of the box. I think the last count is about 75 or so reports across. Somebody asked the question on like what we do to help with the new SKU. Specifically, launch of new SKU, you obviously have to do a lot of research outside the box. But in terms of understanding, if you're launching something as a peripheral adjacent product, you can look at inventory stock level, you can look at aging, you can look at profitability, and then try to do some modeling on a new SKU that you would bring. Maybe, I don't know, Tim, you have some comments on that around when you thought about the new crinkle product, what type of insights and data you captured from core to make that decision from a product launch as well as from a pricing standpoint. Maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we co-man some of our products, and we produce others fully built for us, right? And our most recent product, the crinkle cut, we are co-man here in the U.S. And the tool really helped allow us to begin to build out what are our needs going to be from a raw materials perspective, building in delivery timeframes, et cetera. So it's super critical to get down into the weeds. Initially to look at, all right, well, again, when do we need to be having product? When is our retailer expecting to have that delivered? And what are the potential hangups that we're going to see, whether it's in just manufacturing, because a new product, it's going to take some time. There are going to be some hiccups, and try and use the tool the best we can to address those issues.
Got it. Okay, super. I know we're coming up on time. I wanted to quickly show you the last slide. As Daniel said earlier, right? Please visit this page. You can sign up for a free trial, which is about 14 days long. And there's also a special offer for Startup CPG members. As part of this webinar, you get 50% off for the first 3 months of Cin7 Core. Please do check this out and email, marketing@cin7.com if you have other questions. I know there's a bunch of questions posted. Some of them we covered in the live conversation. There was 2 questions that I did not. One is around logistics company integration. Everybody using a different platform. That is so true. But we have many, many, many integrations, right? Like I said, there's about 900 integrations. Some of them are 3PL connections and so on. So very likely, whatever your 3PL partner, there is a integration, or we have partners that actually offer connections or build connections to those 3PLs as well. And then on the data, somebody asked the question if you have to manually enter it. Not really. Like if you're looking at a product data, you can either import them from an Excel sheet into Core, or you connect Core into one of your marketplaces and bring the product down. Like you can set it up into Shopify if you have an existing Shopify store, and bring the product information so you can get started pretty quickly and start using the product in a matter of days, if you will. Okay.
Joy, what's the what is the general pricing, by the way, just so people know what is 50% typically?
Yeah, the starting, we have 3 different SKUs, obviously, with a lot of flexibility around the modules and levels based on their consumption. But the starting price on Cin7 Core is $349 a month.
Okay, cool. So nice little discount if you sign up through Startup CPG. I just want to thank all of you guys for taking the time to go through this with us. This is a complicated topic. It's not one you learn about when you watch Shark Tank, but this is actually this is what it's really like to start and run a company. And so thank you guys for taking the time. And again, I really give my kind of full-hearted support to Cin7, because just overwhelmingly they have been recommended by people in our community, by the consultants who know what the stuff that's most effective and easiest to work with is. So we're really happy to finally be able to partner with them to make it a little bit more accessible to people from the community, and just looking forward to a really long, productive relationship with you guys. So definitely, I put the link also in the chat if you want to get a demo or free trial for Cin7. You can click on it there, or Cin7 is really responsive if you want to email them at marketing and just kind of have a more direct chat with them there. And we will post this recording on our Vimeo and also a new YouTube that we're starting. Gotta be cool with the kids and have a YouTube.
No TikTok?
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, we have one actually.
We can all do some dance moves on inventory management.
Don't tempt me. We got to get you some browser tab management software out, Joy. I saw how much
I know. Trust me. You're not the first one, and you won't be the last one.
All right. So thank you guys. Any last messages? Or we'll look forward to seeing you guys on the Slack also.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining us as well.
Thanks all.
Bye, Tim. Bye, Stephen. Bye, Joy.